Throughout the course of more than 2,000 years, Mary, the mother of Jesus, has been regarded as a symbol of faith, divinity, and purity. But beyond the well-known picture of her as the Virgin Mother, how much do we truly learn about this incredible woman? Her narrative is not simply one of motherhood. Rather, it is a story of tremendous faith, divine intervention, and an unflinching dedication to a goal that is far more important than herself individually. From the miraculous pregnancy of Jesus to her presence at the foot of the cross, Mary's journey is full of moments that demonstrate a depth of courage and obedience that may inspire everyone, regardless of their religion. These moments can be found throughout her trip. Nevertheless, there is a great deal more to her narrative. Did you know that the fact that she gets married at a young age, in a society where females are married at a young age, highlights the strength of her faith? Is it possible that her part in the rescue of mankind is intricately connected to the very lineage of David, therefore bringing about the fulfillment of ancient prophecies? The undiscovered realities about Mary will be discussed in this video. These truths include her significance that extends beyond the title of mother, her profound link to the redemption of mankind, and the ways in which her legacy continues to have an influence on millions of Christians all over the globe today. Are you prepared to unearth the little-known tale of one of the most revered ladies in the annals of history? Let's begin immediately. The beginning of Mary's narrative takes place in a seemingly little hamlet known as Nazareth, which is located in the rolling hills of Galilee. The rhythms of agriculture, religion, and tradition dictated the tempo of daily activities in this particular location, allowing life to flow at a more leisurely pace. Mary lived a simple but meaningful life in this remote area. She was a young girl, most likely between the ages of 13 and 15, and she resided with her family in a home that was not very large. Her daily activities consisted of the mundane activities that are a part of everyday living, such as getting water from the well, grinding grain, weaving fabric, and preparing meals. In spite of this, there was a sense of purpose even in these seemingly little acts. Mary's modest devotion to God was well known throughout the world. She had developed a profound confidence in His providence because of the teachings of her faith and the traditions that had been handed down from generation to generation. This trust had been established from a young age. She had no idea that her life, which appeared to be so routine, was about to undergo a transformation that she could never have conceived of. An amazing occurrence took place one day when Mary was going about her daily activities. It was an occurrence that would permanently change the path that human history would take. Gabriel, the angel, materialized before her, and his presence might be described as both awe-inspiring and reassuring. Mary halted, her heart beating, as he welcomed her with words that must have surprised her. "Hail, O favored one, the Lord is with you," he said. She was curious about the possible meaning of this salutation. Was she the intended recipient of it? She was reassured by Gabriel, who sent the message that she had gained favor with God. Subsequently, the momentous announcement arrived. A message from the Holy Spirit informed Mary that she would become pregnant with a child. This kid would not be a typical son. Rather, he would be the Messiah, the one who would save the world. He would be the anticipated Messiah. Mary paid close attention as her thoughts were filled with a variety of inquiries and feelings. Why is this even possible? Joseph, a carpenter from Nazareth, was her future husband, but she had not yet tied the knot with him. She was a virgin. Gabriel's message carried a surprising number of implications. The moment she agreed to take on this task, her life would be completely transformed. It was possible that she might be subjected to mockery, suspicion, and possibly danger. Nevertheless, Mary replied with an extraordinary amount of humility and bravery, considering the magnitude of the task that was in front of her. Her words were as follows: "Behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord." Mary accepted her divine vocation by saying, "Let it be to me according to your word." By doing so, she established a model of obedience and faith that would serve as an inspiration to countless generations to come. Almost soon after hearing the news of her pregnancy, she faced some difficulties. In spite of the fact that Mary and Joseph had not yet started living together, betrothal was already a holy bond between the two of them. These kinds of relationships were considered to be legally binding in their society, and any violation of trust may result in catastrophic results. When Joseph learned of Mary's situation, he was overcome with a great deal of distress. To save her from the humiliation of public scrutiny, he contemplated secretly terminating the engagement. But God made a difference. During Joseph's dream, an angel appeared to him and explained the miraculous nature of Mary's pregnancy from his perspective. In addition to assuring Joseph that Mary had not committed any wrongdoing, the angel pushed him to take Mary as his wife from the beginning. Joseph awakened with a refreshed sense of where he wanted to go now. As a result of his determination to provide for Mary and the child she was carrying, he invited her into his house. Together, they embarked on a journey that would challenge their faith and fundamentally alter their lives. The time for the birth of Jesus was drawing near, and Mary and Joseph were confronted with yet another obstacle. They were forced to go to Bethlehem, which was Joseph's ancestral home, in order to comply with a census edict issued by the Roman Empire. Over the course of approximately 100 miles and across rough terrain, the journey was a lengthy and challenging one. Mary, who was getting close to the conclusion of her pregnancy, persevered through the challenges with a peaceful composure. She was exhausted physically, but her spirit was unwavering as she rode on a donkey. When they arrived at Bethlehem, they saw that the town was packed with travelers who had also come to register for the census. At the inn, there was no free space for them to stay. They made their way to a stable, which was the location where Mary gave birth to Jesus. She placed him in a manger after wrapping him in swaddling clothes and laying him down. In spite of the fact that it was a lowly beginning for the King of Kings, it was packed with extremely significant symbolism. A fragile newborn who was born under the most humble of circumstances, the Creator of the universe, had made his entrance into the world for the first time. Shepherds were the first to learn the good news about the situation. The birth of the Savior was announced to them by angels who appeared to them in the fields. They made a hasty return to the stable, where they discovered Mary, Joseph, and the newborn infant. Mary stood by and watched as the shepherds gazed with awe at the toddler. She was already aware of the fact that this was not a typical youngster, but their excitement and reverence verified her findings. While Mary was thinking about the meaning of all that had occurred, she held these memories in her heart and valued them. She had the realization that the birth of her son signified the fulfillment of old prophecies, as well as the beginning of a new era. She was aware, however, that his mission would need a significant amount of sacrifice. The moment Mary laid eyes on the teeny-tiny face of her newborn child, she made up her mind to provide him with affection and to get him ready for the future that was in store for him. Mary continued to look after Jesus even as he became more mature over the course of time. In addition to establishing in him a profound reverence for the rule of God, she nourished him with love and taught him the principles that underpinned their religion. Mary never wavered in her commitment to her position as a mother, despite the fact that life was not always simple. With the weight of knowing that her kid was destined for greatness, she managed to combine the responsibilities of daily life with the weight of her knowledge. At the age of 12, Jesus and his family made the journey to Jerusalem in order to celebrate the Passover holiday. There were a lot of prayers, ceremonies, and festivities that took place at this joyful event. Mary and Joseph were aware that Jesus was absent when they were traveling back to their home. Fear began to set in as they sought for him with a great deal of vigilance, and they ultimately located him in the temple. He was observing and posing questions to the instructors while he was seated between them. He amazed everyone who was present with his intelligence. Jesus responded to Mary's inquiry concerning his acts by saying, "Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business?" She was asking him about his actions. As Mary reflected on his words, she became aware that his purpose was being carried out right in front of her very eyes. She kept these recollections close to her heart, having faith that God's plan would be carried out in the manner that he had predetermined. When Mary finally arrived, she was standing at the foot of the cross. This was a moment of sorrow that cannot be imagined. Crucifixion was taking place for her son, whom she had brought up and loved throughout the years. Even in the midst of her anguish, Mary exhibited unshakable faith, in spite of the fact that the burden of his suffering was pressing down on her. She would not leave his side, and she would share in his suffering. As a last demonstration of his love for her, Jesus gave her to the care of John, one of his most cherished disciples. By making this move, Mary was able to symbolize her status as the spiritual mother of all Christians. It was a demonstration of her unwavering faith and the love she had for her mother that she was present during the crucifixion. From the moment of Jesus' birth until the moment of his death, she had been at his side, being there for him every step of the way. Now that he had handed her to John, Mary accepted her new duty and became a mother to all those who followed Christ. The Virgin Mary has been revered as a prominent figure in the Christian religion throughout the course of history. Because she obeyed God's plan, she stood out from the crowd. Her chastity, humility, and unwavering commitment have earned her a tremendous amount of praise. There is also significance in Mary's family tree. Because Mary and Joseph were descendants of David, ancient prophecies about the Messiah's royal heritage were fulfilled. It was via this relationship that Jesus' legitimate status in the line of David was confirmed, confirming his identification as the Messiah. In order to demonstrate how God works through human lives to accomplish his goals, Mary's genealogy provides more evidence of the divine orchestration of the narrative of redemption. When it comes to theology, Mary is frequently referred to as the new Eve. In the same way that Eve's disobedience caused the fall of mankind, Mary's obedience brought about salvation. As a result of her courage to say yes to God, the penalties of sin were reversed, which provided hope to the entire world. Mary's yes to God, often known as her fiat, was a key point in the history of humanity. It made the way possible for the work of Christ to redeem the world. The fact that Mary was willing to cooperate with God's plan exemplifies the inherent worth and potential of every single human being. We, too, are obligated to take part in the work that God is doing, with the expectation that He will utilize our efforts for the glory of His name. By serving as an example, she demonstrates that even the littlest actions of faith may have significant repercussions. On another occasion, Mary is compared to the Ark of the Covenant. Similar to how the Ark in the Old Testament contained the presence of God, Mary was the one who gave birth to Jesus, who represents the complete manifestation of God's presence. The tablets of the law, Aaron's rod, and manna were all contained within the ark, which was said to be a sacred vessel. In the midst of his people, it represented the presence of God. The same thing happened with Mary. She became the dwelling place of God, bearing within her the Word that had become flesh. Through this parallel, Mary's singular position in the history of redemption is brought into focus. In the plan that God has devised, she is not only a bystander, but rather an active participant and collaborator. When heaven and earth united in her womb, she became the ultimate ark of the new covenant, because she became the sanctuary where heaven and earth mingled. Over the course of several centuries, devotion to Mary has grown significantly. Numerous Christians pay her homage by praying, going on pilgrimages, and engaging in customs such as the recitation of the Rosary. One of the most revered devotions that is dedicated to Mary is the recitation of the Rosary. The prayers and meditations that make up this practice are focused on significant moments in the lives of Jesus and Mary. By praying the Rosary, believers strengthen their connection to Mary and progress towards a stronger relationship with Christ. There is a prayer, a moment of thought, or an act of appreciation being represented by each individual bead. The act of praying over and over again generates a rhythm that not only soothes the mind, but also opens the heart to the presence of God. Many people find that praying the Rosary brings them a sense of calm and a revitalization of their spirituality. Because of this, they are able to walk beside Mary and reflect on the mysteries that surround her life, as well as the life of her Son. A further option for believers to demonstrate their devotion is by traveling to Marian sites on pilgrimages. It is with the expectation of coming into contact with the grace of God that these trips are undertaken. They are acts of faith and penance. Pilgrims seek both physical and spiritual healing with the intention of bathing in hallowed waters at locations such as Lourdes. In the city of Fatima, people pray for peace while lighting candles. The picture of Mary that is engraved on Juan Diego's tilma is something that many in Guadalupe find mesmerizing. Despite the fact that every location has its own individualized narrative, they all have one thing in common: the transformational power of faith. Upon their return to their homes, pilgrims are refreshed, having brought with them the blessings and the teachings they had learned on their journey. A mark that cannot be erased has been left on the world by the apparitions of Mary. They bring to our attention the fact that God continues to speak with people via the instruments that He has selected. The lessons that Mary conveys frequently center on topics like love, repentance, and togetherness. To return to God, to live lives of virtue, and to care for one another, she encourages people to return to that God. Her appearances are not only historical occurrences, rather, they are constant invitations to strengthen our connection with God throughout our lives. She appeared with Bernadette Soubirous in Lourdes, where she urged the devout to pray and perform acts of penance. While she was in Fatima, she conveyed messages of encouragement and caution, urging people to convert to her Immaculate Heart and devote themselves to her. During the Guadalupe ceremony, she appeared before Juan Diego and reassured him of her motherly love and care. These apparitions continue to motivate millions of people, bringing them closer to Mary and, through her, to Christ. There are many lessons to be learned from Mary's life, in addition to the spiritual importance she possesses. Her modesty instills in us the importance of sincerity and being straightforward. Her bravery motivates us to tackle obstacles with poise and fortitude, and we are inspired by her. We are inspired to show compassion towards others as a result of her compassion. The example of Mary demonstrates that genuine greatness is not found in the accomplishments of this world, but rather in the acts of service, love, and devotion. She brings to our attention the fact that God picks those who are modest and humble to carry out His most significant activities. The fact that God writes straight with crooked lines and uses our defects to bring about His perfect will is demonstrated by her life, which is a testimonial to the truth above. The significance of Mary's position as the spiritual mother of all Christians cannot be overstated. It is clear that she exemplifies the characteristics of a caring mother, including patience, understanding, and unwavering support. When she prays for her children, she is praying for them and pleading with God on their behalf. Her maternal love is not limited by national or cultural bounds. Rather, it encompasses individuals from all walks of life. The presence of Mary in the lives of those who believe is a source of solace and strength. Because she has been through the challenges that mankind goes through, she has a deep understanding of them. Mary pursued a road of faith and submission throughout her life, beginning with the bewilderment of the Annunciation and ending with the anguish of the crucifixion. Our ability to endure, even when the path ahead is challenging, is inspired by her example. One of the most beautiful aspects of Mary's narrative is how universal it is. It is timeless and transcends cultural boundaries, and it speaks to the human experience. She traveled from Nazareth to Bethlehem, from the Annunciation to the cross, and her trip is a reflection of the highs and lows that are inherent in life. The fact that God meets us where we are and uses our circumstances to accomplish His goals is brought to our attention by this. The life of Mary is a demonstration of the reality that the purposes of God are more powerful than our own, and that His grace is adequate to meet all of our specific needs. In spite of the fact that His actions are murky, she encourages us to put our faith in Him. It is through her tale that we are challenged to accept our individual responsibilities in God's plan, with the assurance that He will guide us to a place of fulfillment and delight. In the contemporary world, Mary's legacy is still very much alive and thriving. The fields of art, music, literature, and theology continue to draw inspiration from her. Numerous hymns and prayers have been devoted to her because of her. People have attempted to capture her appearance by representing her in a variety of roles, such as the loving mother, who is cradling her kid, or the majestic queen, who is crowned with stars. The character of her has been investigated by writers who have envisioned her feelings and ideas. The importance of her life and function has been investigated by theologians who have uncovered several levels of meaning in both areas. Mary has an effect that transcends beyond the confines of religious traditions, affecting the hearts of people from all walks of life everywhere. Her narrative speaks to anybody who has ever been confronted with uncertainty, wrestled with doubt, or yearned for a more profound relationship with the Holy for the first time. Mary, in the eyes of many people, represents a connection between heaven and earth. At the same time as she is an example of holiness, she is also a mediator of grace and a guide on the spiritual journey. The way she lives her life encourages us to consider how we relate to God in our own lives. Do we have the willingness to answer His call, even if it asks us to make a sacrifice instead? Is our faith in Him strong enough to allow us to give up our plans and submit to His will? The example that Mary sets for us encourages us to develop our love and faith. She brings to our attention the fact that although the designs of God are not always simple, they are always beneficial. It is through her tale that we are inspired to welcome the unknowable and to have faith that God will guide us to a future that is rich in inspiration and meaning. A conclusion may be drawn that the life of Mary is a tapestry that is woven with the strands of love, obedience, and faith. There are millions of people all throughout the world whose hearts have been moved by her narrative, which is one of tremendous significance. She played a significant part in the history of redemption, beginning with her miraculous pregnancy and continuing through her attendance at the crucifixion. Believers continue to be inspired and guided by her example, even in modern times. A monument to the strength of trusting in God and the beauty of a life lived in service to Him, Mary's legacy is a tribute to both of these things. Through her tale, we are encouraged to accept our individual roles in God's plan and to have faith that He will guide us to a place of fulfillment and joy. Through her life, we are able to witness the boundless possibilities that may be achieved through faith and submission. Mary's story serves as a reminder that God selects the ordinary to accomplish the remarkable. When we consider Mary's life and legacy, I can't help but feel a profound feeling of amazement at the intricacy and depth of her tale. I can't help but feel something like this. However, when we peel back the layers, we find a lady who exemplified faith, perseverance, and an unshakable belief in something that was far larger than herself. It is easy to examine her through the prism of religious tradition, but when we do so, we uncover a woman who was a woman of faith. Her path was not just acceptance of a divine calling. Rather, it was a journey of radical obedience and an example of strength that transcends time, culture, and belief. Her journey was a journey of radical obedience. The importance of putting one's faith and humility into practice is one of the most significant things that can be learned from this investigation. The role that Mary played as the new Eve and her acceptance of God's plan, despite the insurmountable obstacles, teach us about the quiet courage that is sometimes overlooked when confronted with hardship. It is a poignant reminder that faith does not necessarily require spectacular gestures. Rather, it frequently flourishes in the simple actions of obedience and confidence in the unseen. Her determination to accept her mission with bravery at such a young age is a powerful example of this. Now that we have reached the end of this section of her tale, I want to encourage you to think about your own path. Considering that we live in a society that frequently craves certainty, what does it mean to live with faith? What are some ways that we might discover the confidence to fully embrace the uncertainty, just like Mary did? I encourage you to investigate, examine, and interact with these concepts in your own life. Feel free to do so. To begin a conversation, to ask more in-depth questions, or simply to take time to think on how we, too, may embody the same bravery and trust in our own individual tales. Here are some ideas to consider.